Welcome to Talent Titans, the podcast where we bring you entrepreneurs and leaders from the global staffing industry. I'm your host, Suki Sodi. Now let's jump right on in and welcome today's Titan. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Talent Titan. My guest today upset quite a few people in the staffing industry, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we dive in, Jason, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And for those that don't know you, who are you? Who is Jason?
Yeah, hi. Jason Bruckman, founder, CEO of BoldX Talent. I've been in the staffing and recruiting space for 25 years, worked across many different verticals in the industry, and opened my own firm about a year and a half ago.
Okay. And let's just dive straight in, because you put up a post on LinkedIn, must have been maybe a month ago, maybe a bit longer than that. And you started your post with, and I'm paraphrasing here, MSPs suck. And you had suck in capital words with a few exclamation marks. And then you ended it with many, I can't remember it again, I'm paraphrasing. Many of you are going to say, no, our MSP doesn't suck, but they do, or something to that effect. And then you upset quite a few people in the industry. A lot of people disagreed with you and quote unquote accused you. But there are a couple of people that I respect in this global industry that said, actually, you're onto something here. So you had quite a mixed response. I guess, what was the purpose of that post? Like, why did you feel that needed to be said? And what, quote unquote, qualifications, experience do you feel you have that allowed you to say what you said?
Absolutely. And appreciate the opportunity to chat about it. And you're right. There were many who were upset by the post, which I expected, and many who agreed with me. My inbox on LinkedIn has been hard to keep up with over the last month, to be able to reply to people who agreed, which was probably about 90% of the LinkedIn messages that I received, and the other 10% of people who disagreed. But in order for us to improve, we have to have this open debate and to be able to talk about where MSPs were and where they are today, because it is completely different and has evolved into something that went from a win-win-win to a lose-lose-lose. So it was, the purpose of my post was to create discussion, to be able to move our industry forward, and to be able to have companies and all these MSPs clients, as well as candidates, which is near and dear to my heart, and the most important aspect of all of this, what is best for the candidate. And so you asked about my qualifications. Like I said, I've been in the space for 25 years. I've participated in over 100 MSP programs. I sold MSP for a while, was on the recruitment side for a lot of these programs. And since the inception, really, of MSPs, I mean, MSPs really started to come onto the scene about 15 to 20 years ago. I'd say they became mainstream and really started to uptick with a lot of competition about 10 years ago. And so I've been around it for a long time, and I've seen it progressively get worse.
Okay. I think that qualifies you to talk about it.
Great. Well, I look forward to the discussion. It's fun for me to be able to have this discussion. And if it can move our industry forward, that would be fantastic.
Well, let's be honest. I reached out to you and I was like, interesting. I want to learn more about what you meant. And obviously I thought, you know what, this is a great topic for the podcast as well. But I wanted to make sure it wasn't quote unquote, like, I get it. You've got to work the algorithm and you've got to do the shock factor. But when you and I were talking, I came away from that call thinking, you know what? Fair place. There is room for us to learn and improve here. So I'm just going to dive straight in with my first question, if you're okay with that.
Please.
In your post, you said MSPs have shifted from strategic advisors to traffic cops, I believe you called them. Whereas people like staffing industry analysts and those types are still describing MSPs as strategic advisors with programs judged on vision, innovation, and governance.
Mhm.
So if MSPs are just traffic cops, how do you rationalize or reconcile what the research is showing clients are leaning on them for things like compliance and workforce planning? So if it's just traffic cops, why does the research say no, clients are relying on this?
Sure. And the compliance piece has always been kind of the anchor of an MSP program. It was how it was sold. It was sold on risk. It was sold on uh, you're going to get in trouble because you don't know how to run this program, and we're going to run it for you. And that was fantastic. And I still think that's the case today to be able to help with compliance. My argument is that you can take that internal and be able to run an internal program without a middleman in between and run that compliance piece. There's a number of areas that MSPs used to be really beneficial for, and that was being able to be a strategic advisor, be able to talk about what vendors you should use, how many vendors you should use, get the process in place, make sure that there's compliance on the background checks, the drug test, all of that extremely important, necessary, and critical for a program. That doesn't mean an MSP has to run that. That can all be run internally and at a huge cost savings. It has evolved into more of a what I use the term traffic cop is to be able to make sure, do I have the social security number, date of birth, or last four social, date of birth, have the candidate fill out a form? Is the recruitment company, it's a staffing company, in compliance with A, B, C, and D? And it becomes so burdensome for the recruitment companies that have to submit candidates and be able to stay in compliance that it becomes not worth it. And that is all, again, I don't want to discard or say that compliance isn't important. It is. It just doesn't need to be run through an MSP.
So let me follow this bouncing ball, or you follow my bouncing ball for a second,
Sure.
because my head is sitting there saying, okay, so get rid of the middleman, as you said, bring it in house.
Yeah.
There's a reason people outsource all of this.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason people outsource all of this because they do not want to do it themselves, or they don't have the capability to do it themselves, and money and all the rest of it. So I guess the piece I'm missing in my mind, and I'm sticking around the compliance piece here for a second.
Sure.
If that's why clients are outsourcing it, why the hell would they want the headache themselves?
Sure. And let's separate those because you're taking it from the compliance piece, which is so important. That's what they used to do. And that was the most important aspect of their role, was to be able to vet vendors and be able to support the compliance piece. So if organizations don't want that headache and they want to outsource the compliance piece, outsource the compliance piece. But MSPs have evolved into something different. And I think you can separate compliance, but you also have to bring in everything else that comes with it. And now MSPs, in order to make money, because the juice isn't worth the squeeze by just running an MSP program, they have to bring in EOR. They have to bring in a technology piece. They have to bring in direct sourcing. So they're bringing in all of this, all these other avenues and trying to sell it within their own program, number one. And number two, have to bring in 15, 20, 25 vendors to be able to fill recs. So it has evolved from being a compliance partner, giving strategic direction, and being able to vet vendors to be able to have 2 or 3 great vendors, to this ballooned program where they have to figure out other ways to maximize spend and generate spend to be able to make it worth it.
Okay, I hear you. But what about those clients? Because here's the thing.
Mhm.
I can't sell you anything you don't want to buy. So with the companies bringing in other things like technology and whatever else they're bringing in,
Mhm.
is that not because they're meeting their clients' request, demand, solving a problem for them else? And does that not make them a partner?
It certainly makes them a partner, and they can absolutely gain some valuable knowledge, some strategic direction, and even some additional tools from those MSPs. But let's take it a step further, because we're talking about the client side pressing the easy button to be able to have
Yep.
it all wrapped up in one piece. And so, if an organization wants to pay for that and be able to outsource all of that, great. Let's take it from the candidate perspective. Let's take it from the actual recruitment perspective. And if that client who's pressing the easy button and wrapping everything up in one to be able to go through the MSP, if they're setting up their organization for success, are they getting A candidates? Are they getting the best of the best? Are they working with the best vendors? Are the candidates that are going through the process, are they going through a great recruitment process? When they go and get onboarded, they're going to be happy with how they went through the process? Or are they going to be frustrated and start off the position of that really sucked getting through that? I guess I'm here now. And will that create an environment of trust, credibility ahead of time? That's, I think, the larger discussion to have, because focusing on the compliance piece and wrapping everything up together by pressing the easy button. I know I've used that a few times, that phrase, but it's true. And if that is what is best for the person running the program at that organization, great. But is that best for the entire program? I don't think so.
Okay, so if we stick with the candidate experience,
Yes.
surely, actually, I should have said I've not worked in an MSP environment since I've been self-employed, right? So I should have said that. But all my clients do.
Yes.
So all my clients, right? So, but what I'm thinking here is, okay, us as the agency world, whether that is tech, forget what it is, right? Our job is the candidate experience. So yes, no, okay, let me rephrase that. There's two sides to that coin. There is how we treat the candidate as the agency, and then of course there is how the client treats it. I guess what I'm going to say is, what makes you think it's better if it's bought in-house versus third party? Logically, in my mind, the third party agency, they're going to do a better job. No disrespect to internal, because internal have so many other things they have to take care of. So I guess that's the piece I'm not 100% clear on. Why would this make the candidate experience, quote unquote, better?
Yeah. Well, I will respectfully disagree that.
Oh, please do. That's why I've got you on here.
That it will be worse if it's taken in house. What the candidate experience.
I'm not saying it's going to be worse. Maybe I should have rephrased that. How is it going to be any better?
How is it going to be better? Well, here's how the experience is today in most programs. I won't lump everyone together and say all, but for most programs, you're submitting a candidate on the recruitment side. Typically, what I've seen in MSP programs is there's going to be 5 to 15 vendors working on that one rec. And so each of them get 3 candidates they're able to submit. So now we're pumping in 30 to 45 candidates for one position. And as all those candidates are being pumped in, they're having to fill out the last 4 of their social, their date of birth, fill out a form and sign it that says they have not worked at the organization. There's a number of different things that have to be filled out ahead of time. Once that's filled out, candidate is submitted. From my experience from working in these programs, a massive majority do not give feedback within, let's even call it 5 days. You know, in the industry, we say 48 to 72 hours. Let's call it 5 days. You're typically hearing back in 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes you're never getting a response. So the recruiter is trying to keep the candidate informed. We could be the best recruiters in the world. We could be talking to them every single day. But if we can't get anything from the client in terms of feedback, and so we'll get a notification within the system that says, you have, this position has been filled. And many times, as we all know, there's relationships outside of the MSP. It's all for show. And so candidate is probably already chosen in a lot of those instances. And there's 45 candidates. that are being submitted, 44 of them aren't going to receive the position. Uh, should we be putting 44 candidates through the process of entering all this information in to the MSP and for them to manage it just to not get feedback for 4 to 6 weeks and not receive the position? That sounds like a crappy candidate experience to me. Secondly, once the candidate is chosen and to go through the process, it is so cumbersome to be able to set up those interviews and to be able to have, because we don't have, a majority of the time, we don't have any engagement with the hiring manager. It's only through the MSP. So going through the middleman, and the middleman is saying, well, I haven't heard anything from the hiring manager, trying to reach out to the hiring manager. And we have this convoluted process that's set up that in the end, the candidate is the one who doesn't know what's going on and doesn't have the great experience that they would naturally have if we were working directly with the hiring manager. Let me take that a step further. As you asked, how is it going to be any better? It is going to be better because you have a direct relationship with the hiring manager. And when you have that direct interaction, you're having ongoing conversations. And so typically, if you're working through a hiring manager, maybe there's 2 or 3 agencies working on it, not 15, not 10, not all these that have no interaction at all. And once we are able to submit those candidates, typically when we talk to the hiring manager, we can present directly, we can give some points, we can review them live with the hiring manager to say, I have candidates for you. Let's review these live. Let's go over what works, what doesn't work, and then can give immediate feedback to the candidate. You're considered for this position, or can you elaborate further on this area of your resume? The hiring manager is interested, but had a few questions. So to me, if you have that internally and you're able to have that direct interaction, it makes it a much better experience for the candidate.
I got so many questions came to my mind that as a new one came, the old one left in my mind. But okay, let's unpack this a little bit further, because
Yes.
what I'm hearing here, the issues with the company, not the agency, because they're the ones that are holding the process up. They're the ones that are not getting back in a timely manner. So I think it's a little unfair to say it's the agencies, the suppliers, the partners' fault when companies, that's an internal company issue, that's a communication issue, that's a respect issue, that's all of that kind of stuff. Because if candidate experience was really important to the company, they would make sure that they're giving feedback in a timely manner. The piece I am going to give you, and I am going to totally agree with you on, is the crazy number of submittals that they're asking for.
Yeah.
That piece I do agree, but unless I've missed something in what you said, but giving feedback is a company issue, not an agency issue.
It's
right. So if they're not getting feedback from their hiring managers now, why are they going to get it when they've brought it in-house, I guess?
And it goes back to your point of number of vendors, and it's impossible for a hiring manager to go through 45 people. If they have 2 or 3 and they're managing internally and have a relationship and have a deep understanding of what the position actually entails, because you're discussing it on an intake call, this is a separate part of the conversation, on an intake call directly, instead of an intake call where there's 2 to 3 people from each agency, 10 to 15 agencies, and now all of a sudden you have an intake call with 30 people on it. So you're going through it. Maybe you get one question in, but you're not able to dive deep. And so I would say it's impossible for those hiring managers to be able to respond to 45. And it goes back to earlier in our discussion when we talked about how MSPs have evolved, and it's gotten to this point where it's, let's just bring in as many vendors as we can get in there. Let's bring in 15 vendors. The more we have, the more candidates we're going to have, and the more selection that we're going to have. It's the opposite. It just makes it impossible for hiring managers. So I would argue that when you do have that direct one-on-one relationship, the respect is easier to give when you're actually talking to each other rather than through an intermediary. So you're right. It's on the company, and they should be respectful to be able to give that feedback. If you're already behind and you're hiring for a position, you're probably already buried and behind on your work, and you're down a person. To go through and give feedback on 45 candidates is frankly almost impossible. So,
I agree with you on that one, but I guess the question going through my mind
mhm,
is why bring it in house? Why not change the agreement?
mhm.
Okay. Why not say, look, we only want 5 submittals or 6 or whatever that number is, right? And we only want X number of vendors, suppliers, because you have your tier one suppliers, your tier two, and so forth, right? And some of the tier one sub it out to others. But why not simply be saying, hey, Mr. Client, Mr. End User, here's a better way to work with an MSP?
I love it. That would be fantastic. So my purpose was not to say everything should be brought in house because MSPs, you know,
I think that's how most people took it.
great.
That you're saying, get rid of, yeah, I think that's how people
Okay,
understood it.
let me rephrase. Get MSPs suck the way they're set up today. Fix these things, and MSPs could be very valuable. And go back to when they were very, very valuable. Number one, um, don't have 10 to 15 vendors. Have tier one vendors. Have 2 to 3 vendors for each position. Don't and if they fail, have some backups. Have a secondary. It used to be tier one, tier two. You have 2 vendors maybe in tier one. You have 2 as backups. If they don't fill the order within X period of time, the backups come in and they have an opportunity. And then manage that. Don't farm it out to 15 different vendors to be able to get as much volume as possible. Number 2, feedback. Insist that if you're going to work with an organization and a client, that they give feedback within 48 to 72 hours. Because if they don't, then nobody wins, and MSPs are just not valuable in that instance. If they can't give the strategic advice and then stick to it by some very basic SLAs, then it's only going to cause heartache for everyone involved in the process. So ensure that they do that. Number 3, don't upsell everything. If you're an MSP and you're fantastic at being an MSP, you might not be the best at EOR. You might not be the best at direct sourcing. You might not have the best technology. Do what's best for the client and ensure that you vet each one of those. Vet the best EORs, vet the best direct sourcing partners, vet the best technology, and be the MSP and focus on what you originally set out to do, to be a strategic advisor, to ensure compliance, to vet the best vendors for the program, and ensure that the program is operating as efficiently and the best it possibly can. Because right now, that's not what's happening. It has evolved to this state of what I just described, and it has made it so it is really, really difficult for candidates to be involved in the process, really difficult for recruitment firms in the process, and honestly, really difficult for the client, as the aforementioned, 45 candidates that they have to go through. So I'll clarify, I guess, my post, or I'll clarify what I want to accomplish from it. It is not to push people to only use an internal program. Today, the way MSPs are set up, I would not advise any clients to go with an MSP. I just simply wouldn't. And show me one. Show me an MSP that has 2 to 3 vendors per rec. Show me that. Show me an MSP that doesn't pump all their different areas of business. Show me to be able to have. This is a big piece of it that I didn't mention. Recruitment firms and end user don't talk. And don't have any sort of direct relationship. That is just not a recipe.
That bit I 100%, I totally agree with you on that one, because that's what's breaking it. Now, there's a couple of things you said just now that I kind of want to go back and unpack a little bit. I 100% agree with you. Having so many vendors, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, I get it. You could want somebody that can supply you North America.
Mhm.
right? Not everybody can't do that because not everybody. So one of the things you and I were talking about when I originally reached out to you after that post was, and this is a bit I don't get.
Mhm.
National company A might be really good
Mhm.
in California, right? They might be really good in Texas, but you know what? They really don't have the coverage here in Canada or in New York or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And we all know that a company, Team A over here, might be really crappy, but their same company, quote unquote, same training might be amazing over here. So and there's some smaller players, independent players who are niche and real experts at what they do. So they may be a team of, I don't know, 10 people sitting in Denver,
Mhm.
for argument's sake, or sitting here in Montreal, but they own their market. Why do MSPs not, why do clients not say, you know what? We want people on the quote unquote the vendor list that have specialization in this sector, in this vertical. We want people in this area. We hear this agency is really good, or these two agencies are really good. Why are they not, I guess, to a degree, hand picking those vendors, suppliers, partners?
It's such a great point. And this is where MSPs have the potential to be so valuable. You mentioned in your first statement and first question strategic partnerships and strategic advisors. This is where they can be so valuable to be able to truly pick out the best vendors, not lump in a bunch of different vendors that are national and give them opportunity, which a majority of them, by the way, I've talked to a lot of them, have now outsourced that overseas to be able to gather as many resumes as possible, pump them in, and hope something sticks because they just can't afford to be able to have recruiters work on it locally. So, to your point, um, it would be, and you're right, national firms, they're wonderful in some cities, and
Yeah.
other cities they're not so great.
But isn't that's the same for whether it's an independent, right? Um, you could talk to Team A, amazing. Hey, you could talk to people in the same office,
Yeah.
one doing, I don't know, tech and another doing A&F and get two very, very different services. So I don't want to, but I do wonder why companies do not get involved with that. And they have to use the nationals no, I say nationals, now that could be public, could be private, because they correctly or incorrectly think, oh, well, this company can give me the coverage. Or is it because they're the ones that know how to sell the MSPs?
There's two,
And that's why they go there.
two reasons. One, it's easy to just get national firms that can handle all the different locations. You don't have to put in the work to vet. And the margins are already so slim for MSPs to make money. To put the additional resources in to vet the best of the best in each market takes time, effort, and money. And so they might not know the best in the particular market and have to take some time to be
Fair
able to
pay.
do research. Number two, a lot of the local firms that are in some of the smaller markets can't compete on rate. So the national firms are able to have those volume discounts that are marked down extremely low. And the local firms either don't want to work on that business because it's typically much lower markup percentage than their natural and regular business. Or they simply just can't compete on on that rate that national firms sometimes can. So those are a few reasons, but I would say the first reason is the most apparent, and what I see in the market is it's just hard. And it would take time, effort, and money to be able to vet those firms in each market that their clients serve.
Yeah, fair plays. And I guess who should that duty be sitting on to vet the partner? Should it be with the agency, the tier one agency, the provider, or should it be with the client? In my mind, they should be doing it together.
I would love if they were to do that together, but the MSP model is that they vet the vendors. Now, there's instances where, there's a recommendation from the client of, hey, I know someone at this firm, or I've been talking to this firm, please put them in the program. That certainly happens. But for the most part, the MSPs are vetting the staffing firms that they're bringing into the program. They'll do it in collaboration. They'll have
Yeah.
conversations. They'll give recommendations as advisement to the client. But a lot of the times, they're finding these vendors in different markets to be able to put into the program. It should be collaborative. It should be vetting together in all of those markets to be able to ensure that it's the best possible firm. And I will say one other thing, and it's a good point that you're bringing up of doing this together and who does this fall on. Over the years, this is not all the MSP's fault, so to speak.
Well, that was good. That was a
This is
thoughts
absolutely not.
formulating in my mind.
So I want to make that point very clear. Clients have pushed back heavily. They've demanded more for less, and
Yeah.
it has pushed MSPs to the point where they're simply not making money unless they have other revenue streams, add in other pieces of business, find creative ways to be able to make the program worth it. So it is certainly heavily on the client side, and whether it's the MSPs not pushing back, or as we see this often in our industry, there's a few bad players who get in there, offer less or offer a lower rate, and push it down, and then it brings the whole market down. It's like, well, they're willing to do it, so we have to do it too. And it
Yeah.
has just snowballed into this of clients demanding so much and MSPs not having the resources. And when then you factor in an economy like we've had the last year and a half in our industry, where spend is down dramatically, then you're trying to keep the resources in play for that particular client. You have 5 people working on a particular client, and the spend is dramatically down. The contingent spend. Where do you go? What do you do with those 5 people? The client is trying to, you have minimums. Sometimes you'll have a retainer, or sometimes you'll have the client try to pay for it, but they're pushing back. So it's a really good point by you, and I want to emphasize that and be able to say where we are today is a combination of a lot of things, and the client side has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, because here's what I'm hearing. Ultimately, the buck stops with the client. And hear me out on this one.
Yeah.
The buck stops with them because ultimately it is their brand, their employees. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
No, and then of course the impact it has on business and all the rest of it. But if the client is saying, actually, you have to do all of this, and they're making the MSP work blindfolded almost,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can't blame the agency side because they're trying to work within the parameters the client has set. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, and yes, I will say we as an industry are guilty of not pushing back sooner and things like that. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are people that are going to do it cheaper. Every industry has its cowboys, and we're no different. We do as well. But that's the truth of the matter, right?
Sure.
But when it is so low, when the margins are so low, mm-hmm. someone somewhere isn't getting paid correctly. Sure. And I'll just use North America as an example. Mm-hmm. Someone's employee deductions aren't being paid. The benefits aren't being paid, or somebody is not being paid in that process. Clients are aware of that because everybody can do the maths.
Yep.
Right? So I think there is an onus on us to be saying here, hey, Mr. Client, if you want, you get what you paid for. But from the agency side, I think what we're saying is there's some lessons to be learned and some of the things we can do differently. Yeah. And one of them is really educate our clients.
Yep.
As to what it actually costs to run this program and the implications of it.
Absolutely. Agreed. I have nothing more to add to that. I think that is something that us as an industry that we need to do that, certainly on the client side. And yeah. So agreed.
Because you're right. The victim, we're actually agreeing. Because the victim here, I think another point you and I both agree on, quote unquote, the victim here is the candidate.
Mm-hmm.
right? The victim here is the candidate. And I know, although I said, oh, it's their fault, that kind of stuff, right? Neither staffing agencies or clients consciously set out to get the candidate a bad experience, right? And that's true of whether you're a global agency, a national agency, or you're just in amazing and you own a particular territory. None of us, same with the clients, doesn't matter whether they're tech, whatever, nobody sets out to give a candidate a poor candidate experience
Yeah, and
intentionally.
I agree. So the biggest losers are the candidates
Yeah,
through all of this. I would argue that it's a lose 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 because the candidate is certainly losing in this process. Um, the recruitment companies are losing in this process
yeah,
because
fair
yeah,
point.
we covered that. I think the clients are losing in this as well because they're not getting the best vendors. The best vendors and the best recruiters are not working on MSP orders first. We all have a board. We all have A, B, and C orders. And I guarantee you that the MSP orders are not the A's. They are the clients that we have direct contact with that we are able to fill positions. We're one of two vendors, one of three vendors to be able to fill those roles, and we do continuous business with. Those are A orders. If I get an order and I know if I find a candidate, I'm going to fill that order this week. Am I working on that? Or am I working on the order where I'm putting in three candidates up against 42 other candidates that I may be able to get a fill in there once every 10, once every 12 people that I submit. So I would say the clients, so they're not getting the best vendors. They're certainly not getting the best candidates because the best candidates are not going through that rigmarole, that process to be able to submit. They're being gobbled up very quickly. I don't care what market it is. I don't care if we're in the worst economy. The best candidates are going to go, and they're always going to get hired. The best of the best. It's just simply the way it is. And I'll also argue that yeah, right now they're pumping in candidates into the system. What about when we turn? What about when the economy was what it was like 3 or 4 years ago, when candidates go within 1 to 2 days, the best candidates? You think those candidates that are sitting with an MSP in their database for a month that they're going to be sticking around? Absolutely not. You're getting the bottom 20-25% of vendors. You're getting the bottom 20-25% of candidates, and and they're going through a crappy process. So I would argue that the client is a huge loser in this process as well. And lastly, the fourth piece, the MSPs. Are they winning? No, I don't think they are winning. I think that they are battling for their lives to be able to stay in this game with a very, very hard process that is set up. That whether we created it for ourselves or not, it's still there right now.
Yeah,
They're
we are where we are.
we are where we are. They're battling with clients. They're battling against the competition is absolutely fierce, and the margins and the spend are going down. So I would argue that MSPs need to reinvent themselves to be able to be profitable and to be able to be sustainable for the future. Because the way it's set up right now, it is a losing battle. And whether it's this year, next year, the year after, whenever that may be, there aren't going to be very many MSPs left because it just is not sustainable when you're in a situation where it's lose, 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 lose. So that would be my argument. So whether it needs to be brought in house or it needs for MSPs to just reinvent themselves, because there is still the potential for a ton of value for MSPs. And there are some fantastic people that work in the space. I know a lot of fantastic people that work in the MSP space, friends that work in the MSP space. So I want them to succeed. I want them to do better. But the way it is set up right now, not to use a cliche, they suck. They do. And we went over all the reasons why. Uh,
Okay, so let me ask you this because I'm conscious of time.
yes.
You've got a client listening to this when it airs.
Mhm.
You've got a service provider listening to this when it airs. And then you've got that small niche recruitment agency who would love to be able to get in and work on some of these niche roles. start with the client side.
Yeah.
What is that one thing you're going to say to the client, so in order for them to make this a successful relationship? What do they need to focus on right now?
Candidate experience. How can they have a partnership with their MSP to be able to come up with an experience for the candidate that is fantastic? I think once you solve for that, everything else falls into place. Uh,
Yeah,
and so I would, the other piece, if you want to add on, I know you said one thing of
let's go for it.
make it fair for the MSPs. If they're going to be a strategic partner, have them be a strategic partner. Take their advice. They tell you that we have to have this number of vendors, we have to get feedback in this period of time. Your spend has to be X, or you have to have this level of retainer or pay. Just take their advice and don't go to the lowest cost provider. Just put some very basic SLAs in place, because this will create a phenomenal experience for the candidate. And once we have that, you're going to get the best candidates and you're going to get the best vendors working on positions.
And now, what would you say to the providers, if they're listening to this? What do they need to do differently?
To the recruitment providers or the MSP
Yeah,
providers?
the MSP providers.
The MSP providers, um, again, think about candidate experience. Go back to your roots. Go back to what made MSPs a difference maker in our industry, to where you're vetting the best possible vendors. You're vetting the best possible solutions for the client, not this expanded agenda to be able to get in other areas of business and other lines of business to be able to grow, spend. Figure out what you need to be successful and push back on clients to be able to put things in place that are going to make you successful, going to make the vendors that you have in the program successful, and that are going to make the candidates have a phenomenal experience to be able to be happy to apply for a role. And when they walk away, even if they don't get the position, they say, you know what, that was a good experience. I heard
Yeah,
back right away I heard back. I was able to submit. Like, don't make it like going to the dentist. Sorry, dentists out there. My father-in-law's a dentist, periodontist. So when he watches this, I'm sorry. But don't make it like you're going to the dentist to apply for a job, because this is their lives. And we have to go back to the bottom line of, like, these are people's lives. Like, this is their how they support their families, and we don't want to make it a miserable experience just for them to try and get a job.
and last but not least, that small, independent, niche recruiter in whatever sector, they want to be able to be they don't want to diversify, but they still want to be able to do business with these large accounts. How do they become a preferred supplier, a preferred vendor? How do they get onto that list? And what should they be looking out for?
Yeah, uh, very difficult. I would say that they're probably priced out of being on that list unless they're recruiting out of market and sending things overseas where it's much lower cost to be able to recruit for these folks. But reach out to the program managers, ask to be able to be put on the RFP next time they go out. They go out for vendors and build relationships. I would recommend locally in the market to be able to meet those people within the organization. So if you're not talking to the program manager from the MSP, talk to the company directly. And a lot of times, if you're able to talk to the company directly and you can get through to someone who has influence, they're going to put you on the list, and they're going to talk to the MSP to be able to say, hey, I want to get this company on the list. So that's the best way to be able to do it, is to continuously reach out to the right people. And I have found that it's much harder to go the route of going through the actual MSP and to go through the company and have someone champion you to be able to get into the program.
It's a good piece of advice. We're coming up to time. We could keep going. I mean, when I originally reached out to you and when I read your post, I really thought you were saying, hell with MSPs, every company should bring it in-house. And I was just like, this just does not, I don't get it. I don't understand why they would do that. But in essence, that's not what you're saying. You're saying it is broken.
Mhm.
And it can be fixed, but it takes both sides to fix it. And you're saying, I don't care how you fix it, but can we fix it?
Yes. And maybe it's another post, MSPs suck today. So
There
because
you go, right?
the way it's set up today, there is still hope. There's still potential, and there's still a lot of value MSPs can provide. The way it's set up today is completely broken. And if I were to advise clients on going in-house or going through an MSP, it would be 100% of the time bring it in-house today. If things change from all sides to be able to improve how things are set up, how MSPs are structured, and going back to how it was previously. I always hesitate of going backwards in time because we evolve, we progress, we become better. This is an instance where things have gone in reverse and they've regressed over time. And it has gotten to where if you look at an MSP today compared to an MSP 10 years ago, the value was tremendous 10 years ago. And absolutely, I would have recommended to utilize an MSP. Today, I would not. And it's because of all the reasons that I described earlier. Fix those. And you see when I replied to a number of people within the post of, here's the 3 ways to be able to figure out if your MSP sucks. It all stems back to candidate experience and being able to ensure that it's a win-win-win-win on all sides. And right now it's not.
You're right, because ultimately you get what you paid for.
Yes.
And if the company, i.e. the employer, the end client, if their decision is solely being based on dollars and cents, and I get it, dollars and cents are important, but ultimately you may be saving a few pennies here, but what is the cost of saving those few pennies?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that's where the balance has gone out of whack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you go back to 10, 15 years ago, the rates were higher, the service was quote unquote better, right? Yeah. We weren't having this conversation because companies were recognizing that they got to pay a fair day's wage to candidates, to the other company, because ultimately the service providers are not for profits. Everybody is looking to make a profit, and the profits are what gets reinvested.
Right.
So if you're constantly bringing that down. Jason, we've gone over time, as I figured we would. Thank you ever so much for joining us. If someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can email me, jason@boldxtalent.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I love having conversations like this. So anyone that wants to reach out and just have a conversation, I love it. It's fun. And let's move our industry forward. That is the whole goal here. We have a wonderful industry, and let's push it forward. And Suki,
you know what?
Really appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation initially when we were talking, and enjoyed this conversation as well. Thank you.
Thank you. But one thing we will 100% agree on, it's a brilliant industry.
Yeah.
Let's make it better.
Yes. Let's make it better.
Let's make it better. Jason, thank you ever so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Suki. Take care.
Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talent Titans, brought to you by Recruitment Professional Forum, where they're building a grassroots community for professionals and leaders in the recruitment industry to collaborate, advocate, and advance the profession. If you liked or were inspired by what you heard, make sure to follow, subscribe, and even leave a review. It lets more talented recruiters like you find the show. Until next time, keep on being a talent titan.